I think we could debate about China and the world issues, you know, forever, because I don't think we'll ever find a solution, although it's obviously an important part. So economics are an important part of our story. I think what's going on in the world is very important right now to all of us, and it's frustrating when you see, but I don't think we have a right. I lived in Japan for 5 years. I was raised all around the world, and so I do see the difference there and how culturally it's different, and I am very grateful to be an American, to have the idea, to innovate and take a crazy idea and try it, and I'm very comfortable with failure. You know, I probably have fallen and failed many more times than I have succeeded, but I know that each time I've succeeded was actually standing on the shoulders of a previous failure. And I thought that was really interesting. But let's draw an analogy, because I thought it was really interesting, Taekwondo, and how you use this to recognize, and I was very intrigued because of the ninja relationship, living in Japan for 5 years, how that really inspired you to write this book.
Well, Ninja Innovation is a book based on calling ninjas, which is what I always challenge my kids to be: a ninja, act like a ninja, think creatively, think outside of the box, do things differently, solve the problem. It's the same thing you tell employees if you want to get in life. You hit a brick wall, don't go back to your boss and say, I hit a brick wall. Figure out how to get around it, propose a solution, solve the problem. There's not only, it's not a yes or no digital solution, there's always another way of doing things. So think outside the box, and that's what we're really good as Americans, and that's what ninjas did. And it's a Japanese art form, actually, where the ninja was greatly outmanned, outgunned, out everything, but through various techniques, they always won. And that's why I love the word ninja, and I have for years. And it was really inspired. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, my older kids, they watched that as 4- and 5-year-olds, and they wanted to study Taekwondo, so we did it as a family. Now, Taekwondo is a Korean art form that's actually martial arts, but it does require tremendous discipline, creativity, and it's not really about fighting. It's about avoiding fighting. I used to, you know, other than classes and competitions, you don't really ever fight. Both of my kids are black belts. I don't think they were ever in a fist fight in their life. It gave them maybe a certain confidence where it was just avoided. So the analogies are there is that you have to train. You have to be disciplined. You have to have a plan. You have to be ready for something that you don't expect, in a sense that, as military generals have said, you know, you have great plans, but once you hit the battlefield, everything goes wrong, and forget the plan, think on your feet. It has to do with teamwork. There's this great myth in America that the sole entrepreneur builds up a company. It doesn't happen that way, whether it was Thomas Edison or Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg. It doesn't. They had teams of people and partners. And in terms of who you get teams, I mean, one thing we're good at in the United States is legally and increasingly culturally, we stress the concept that you shouldn't hire people like yourself. You should strive and work very diligently to hire people that are different. And I think if you look back to the president, you know, Mitt Romney, in a sense, hired Paul Ryan because he viewed him as a son. Maybe that wasn't the best choice. Maybe he should have had someone a little bit different. And it goes to a lot of decisions that people make, and you see what type of decisions they make, and sometimes you go into a meeting with a corporation and everyone acts and looks and dresses the same, you know, the old IBM blue shirts, whatever. That doesn't work anymore, especially in America today, for a lot of reasons. And putting aside the law, it should be part of our culture, which I think is important. That's why I'm glad to be here talking to women, which is a wonderful thing, because we actually do very well with women in my own. I think most of our, I know that at least 2/3 of our employees are women.
You were mentioning a little bit about some of the things that you're talking about today in your company and focusing on women. You want to share a little bit about what you're doing and what your talk is and why you think that's so important? Well,
we've received a tremendous number of awards as a family-friendly workplace. Some people think it's because I'm a new father again, and I'm with a wife who is struggling to, you know, keep it together. Not because she's the woman keeping it together, but I'll confess something that no one in this room knows, is that when she first got pregnant, I actually agreed that if we had the baby, I would keep the baby in Washington.
Oh, interesting.
And so when she insisted after the birth that it stay in Detroit, that was, all of a sudden our lives totally changed. And thank God for her parents, who were both doctors, came here with her from Poland, had to learn English. Her parents had to retake the medical boards in English. And her mother raised her, which she still is, not only to be independent, but to be financially independent, never rely on a guy, keep financial independence. In fact, my wife was, I'm not allowed to say when she married me, she was single, but she was almost past her 30s. So actually having a kid
almost past her 30s, okay.
Was a total having kids a few years into the marriage was a total shocker, and then having another one.
I remember when you told me you're having that first baby. I'm like, I just saw you as this consummate. Okay, I saw you as a consummate bachelor. I just thought that wasn't going to happen again. And then, how did you meet her? Because I really didn't see this coming. I really did not see you getting married again. Then you get married. And then you marry a doctor, and then you don't have her living here, and then you have a baby. I'm like, what happened?
Life comes at you fast, and it's part of being a ninja.
Yeah.
You have to, you know, there's my wife says there's an old Polish expression that and I'm sure it's other languages as well, but men plan and God laughs. Yeah. You know, that's what life is. And it goes to you started talking about I don't want to tie in mistakes to the kids, but the mistakes you make in life is what you learn from. Well, that's how you should view mistakes and failures and things like that in life. And that's a big part of what I talk about in Ninja Innovation is failures and learning from them. I talk about some of my own failures. But that's what's great about our society. We're the only society that lets that happen, which is terrific. So but not that I'm not tying the marriage of the kids into a mistake at all. That was a bad segue.
Yeah, and I know that. I know you couldn't be happy, and and I know you're madly in love with your wife. I mean, you just absolutely, and I think you were as astonished as I was. You've been this beautiful woman who's a doctor. You got married and then children. So how do you like being a dad the second time around?
It's great. It's very exciting. And my wife and I, since I didn't answer your question, we actually met. She was at a medical conference. I was hosting a board meeting at Snowmass, and we met in a ski lesson, serendipitously, and we got engaged a year later at the top of the mountain. And we just came back a few weeks ago from the same set of meetings. I scheduled my meetings so it was in the same hotel as her meetings that she goes to every year there. So we had my board meet and her Retina Society meet in the same hotel, almost at the same time. My board's fully aware of that. They like my wife, and they thought it was cool.
Well, you know, I think that's good. And plus, you get to go to cool places. You know?
Yes, we go to cool places.
That's really awesome. I mean, that really is. And so, when you travel like to China stuff, does your wife go with you there as well?
We're going to Vietnam in a couple of weeks. We're having my board meeting there. I'm going to her meeting in Scotland in August. We have all sorts of. Our whole calendar is going to each other's stuff.
It must be a master plan. You probably have to have it.
She turned to me this weekend and said, "What do you think about taking a vacation, just the two of us?" And I was like, great idea. But
not with the board?
When? No, I mean, like which weekend would that be?
I know. It really is kind of crazy and tough to manage it. Does she have a good support team at home? Well,
we have a nanny, and her parents are retiring as doctors, and we could not have done this without them. But she also, we have a lot of people, but it's tough. She's a partner in the practice of all men, and some of the, what I've learned is the partnerships don't appear to be covered by the discrimination laws in any way. It's tough. I've talked to a lot of the women in her field, which is a very, to say male-dominated. Like she was told she couldn't do it because she couldn't hold her bladder long enough to do surgery. And there's a whole bunch of things that I won't go into, which still happen even today. I mean, even frankly, she's doing phenomenally well, but having a husband that's successful is not a benefit to a woman where you're a referral-based doctor, because people don't refer business to you if you don't think you need the money. Right.
So let me ask you this. Why didn't she move her practice down here?
Because this is getting personal, but the truth is she's doing phenomenally well. She's very busy, and she's a partner, and she owns her business. To start here at the ground level and be on call every other weekend and start as an employee is not something my wife is emotionally, and I agree with her. I mean, it would be devastating to her to just start over.
What's it like going up to Detroit? I always picture that because it's had so many challenges as a city. I mean,
it's amazing actually, because Detroit they have the most skilled workforce in the country. I mean, really bright people. We ran a Craigslist ad here and one in Detroit, the same ad to get people to help us. Detroit, we had hundreds of people. Here we had one crazy person.
Hey, I thought it would be well suited for the job.
We wanted our garage to just be organized, and we ended up getting all these people that are the guy who designed the interior of the Corvette designed our garage for minimum wage. I mean, and it's amazing, and it's phenomenal. Wow. But there's so much real estate there. It's not that expensive, but it is an amazing place because it's not that expensive to live. It's a highly skilled population. It suffered before any of the rest of the country did, and it's turned around quickly. And a lot of companies are starting to move there, actually. So I've become a Detroit supporter. But it's sad. I mean, as I said, we don't live in Detroit. We live in the Detroit area. So the city itself is just like lost like 1 million people, and it still has a zillion unions, and it's in such bad trouble. But the state is actually a beautiful state, and the Detroit area is phenomenal. There's a lot that goes on there in healthcare, in technology, and advanced manufacturing, which is where I think we have to be as a country. And what a skilled group of people looking for work that it's just amazing. My wife actually has a patent. She started a little side business after our baby where she has developed a product which allows you to, since she traveled with the baby in the beginning of our, basically cart along a kid on a suitcase. Roll-a-baby, it's called. And it's a patented product.
Okay, so I have to ask this. Would you ask your wife to come down and let me interview her? Would you guys like to hear her story? Does she not sound fascinating?
She's much more interesting than I am.
Maybe you could do
But she's a...
She said.
She's tough, though. She's a tough mother. Our son is not allowed, despite my job representing all the TV set makers, does not allow our son to watch TV unless it's in Chinese. So our nanny is, our full-time nanny is from China, and she's not allowed to speak English to our son. So our 5-year-old is fluent in Mandarin, and my wife only speaks Polish, and her parents only speak Polish to our children.
I think that is actually very smart. I think
you should interview my son.
Yeah. I bet your son is going to be an amazing thing, because I think when all those synapses are forming and everything, what do you talk to him in?
English. I only know about 1/3 of what's going on.
That's why she's doing that.
I'm a little embarrassed, actually, because I'm talking about my wife and family so much.
Yeah, but but we want to understand that I mean, that's really what our story is in life. It's how we bring all these important pieces together, and especially when we have people, and we're seeing more and more of that, two very extraordinarily accomplished, successful, smart people coming together and making it work. And today, the world is that you can be living in 2 different cities to make it work. And I think that we always find that challenging, because we all deal with that conflict.
It's so difficult. I mean, just because of her knowing so many other people, women I've met who are successful medical doctors, and talking to them and realizing the challenges they face in their lives, because it's a very time-intensive profession and it's very emotionally draining. You're dealing with health issues that affect people's lives. And then to have a family, and, I mean, it's just, and no matter what, and even in my situation where I think I'm a good guy, the woman ends up in charge. I've only known there's a guy who works for us who has an equal, his wife works at the World Bank and he's a senior vice president. He has an equal relationship. She's always traveling around the world and they share childcare, and it appears totally equally. But I know physically, because I can't, because I'm not there. But on weekends, I'm definitely the dominant provider. But it is tough. It's always still, I don't know why, but it still falls on the woman in our society.
You know, I think it's always like, so the grocery store. So, and I tried to explain this to my brother-in-law, who's a retired 3-star general, and he always felt like women have it easy. And there used to be these everybody in the family, because I'm the only one in my family who worked outside the home, and the conversation would start, and everybody in my family would leave the room. They're going, I'm not even going to be present. And I go, what it really has to do with, it's that, you need food, but it's the woman who thinks about the milk. It's like, somebody can go to the store, but she's the one who puts the milk on the list. Do you know what I mean? So it's always that back thought. Although my husband,
I run the food inventory in the house. I was doing laundry at 6:15 a.m. in Detroit yesterday, and 9:30 last night in McLean.
No,
we have our. But she insists on doing the finance. Like she controls the checkbook. I didn't even see it. So even though I do that for my, I mean, it's strange. Everyone has to work their own way.
I think you do find your own way. I think everybody finds you bring your strengths, and it's challenging. You're really busy, so sometimes you have to let go. So we did kind of go off in a way, but that's the way these conversations go. So I wanted, one of the things I thought, and I always, and I go around the world and I speak around the world and I love it. And one of the things I always find is the most important thing you can ever do in business is ask a question. I mean, it's everything. And I thought that was so fascinating. So I'm going to give back to you some of the questions. He goes around and he interviews senators, business leaders, the head of eBay, and he asks these questions. So I thought it'd be fun to ask you some of the questions you ask. What keeps you awake at night?
So let me set this up a little bit more.
I like the way I did it.
Because my theory is that you have opportunities, especially those of us in business, where you're with people at dinners, at lunches, at breakfast. I exclude airplanes because I get work done in planes, and I try not to talk to the person next to me. But you have an opportunity when you're sitting next to someone to learn about them. You only learn if you ask questions, and everyone's an expert at something. And you just have to get them talking, and then you walk away with something that broadens your perspective in life. So it's always an opportunity when you're talking to someone.
You set that up better than I did.
No, I was just trying to explain why I asked these questions. So what keeps me awake at night? I'm a pretty good sleeper usually, actually. You know, it's irrelevant, but
so have you had
having to get up early in the morning keeps me awake at night.
Yeah.
That's
I can
the
relate
honest
to that.
answer.
I can relate to that.
No, I'm wondering whether the alarm is going to go off.
Have you had an interesting response to that question?
Yeah, because you find out all the time. You find out what people really concerns them in life or their business.
Anything you can share with us?
Well, it's very valuable actually with customers. So we have this thing with our customers is that no one does hard selling anymore. I mean, it doesn't work. So you find out their problems and then you solve them, which is what our sales team does really good. And it's just a matter of asking questions. Good salespeople are asking questions. This is like, to bring it back to the woman thing if I can. So most women know that guys think you're really smart if the guys talk most of the time. So basically women on dates ask a lot of questions. I mean, it's sad but true. So guys say, wow, she was really smart. Or it's an interview, taking it aside the world of male-female. If you're an employee, if you're trying to get a job, if the interview, there's research shows, if the interviewer is talking more, then they think you're smart. But if you're just giving them answers, that's why you always throw back questions.
That's why
So
everybody in Washington thinks I'm really smart. I actually absolutely agree with you, and I actually have used that approach for years and years. So, what excites you?
I get excited about making a difference. You know, when my first book, The Comeback, came out, it was novel at the time. It had all these policy prescriptions and points of view, and said this is what we need to sustain the American dream, to be the most innovative country in the world. Here are the things we need as a national strategy. I got a lot of bipartisan support. And it was only aimed at Capitol Hill. It became a bestseller, but a lot of the things we've done, it's happened in the last 3 years. It's made a difference. So making a difference on a big issue matters. Actually, to be less polite about Detroit, I like Washington because people focus on big issues here and things that matter, and they take them seriously. You know, you're in Detroit, you talk about, if you're not interested in the car industry, the Red Wings, I mean, it's like, it's tougher to find those common things. So Washington is very bright people here, and they're thinking about big issues and trying to solve problems. You could disagree with someone, I mean, that's okay, but you agree these issues are important.
Do you think one person can make a difference?
Oh, totally. I mean, we're talking now as Margaret Thatcher has passed away, and she made a huge difference. I mean, I think our flag should be flying at half-mast here, because not only being a great, establishing that relationship and a personal way and saying it's so important, but taking a position and believing in it and turning around the country. Yeah, she upset people, but even her opposition said you have to upset people when you're a leader, and that's the problem with any leadership, is you have to make decisions, and when you make those decisions, you're going to upset people. That's what leadership is. It's not just finding a middle way. It's actually embarking upon a strategy. And that's what leaders do. And she proved that you could be tough, and you could be a leader, and you could be a woman, and no one judges her because she's a woman. I mean, she got over that almost immediately. And that was a barrier, but that's not how she wants to be remembered. Well, who knows how she wants to be remembered, but she has said publicly that what matters is that I made a difference. And I think that's important. So that's what leadership is about.
I like that. I like that. I do agree. She was such an incredible influence. I do agree that we should have our flags flying at half-staff for her, because she really was an amazing woman, and she influenced a lot of changes, I think, in this world. So how did you become CEO of CEA? How did that happen? Because you weren't doing that. I mean.
Well, when I was a law student at Georgetown Law School, I was working for a law firm, Squire Sanders, which was, the association was a client, and I just kept working for them, and then it was exclusively for a year. Then they offered me an internal job, and I worked my way up. But it's been over 30, actually if you count law school, it's 33 years of working for the same client. So, but what's changed is when I took over the CEO job, we had 40 or 50 members, and now we have 2,000. So part of the deal, I says, we have to broaden, we have to grow, we have to keep redefining what consumer electronics is. So now, for example, a large part of our trade show is the automobile companies. And we get Hollywood, we get Madison Avenue, we get the financial press. It used to be a place where dealers went. Well, the number of dealers and retailers that matter, like Best Buy and Target and Walmart, they could fit in this room. So we had to expand to get to that growing presence, so we're the largest event of any type, maybe in the world. So we get 5,000 media coming to the show. We made media important, we made international important. So How did I get there? A lot of it is luck in the right place at the right time, and others, I was hungry, I wanted to do it, and like a lot of things in life, I always think I could run something better than somebody else. So that's just who I am.
I agree with you. I think you can. You're
Well, I don't know if I
pretty
can, but
impressive.
I said in a meeting today, you know, if I lived in communist China, I'd be dead now. If I worked anywhere else, if I'd had any other job, I probably would have been fired. I found the one thing I'm good at, so I like it.
That's find the one thing you're good at, you know, and do it until you get fired. You know, you do whatever you want until you get fired. I will always remember that. I think that's awesome. So I know you were an instrumental part of in developing HD TV, and I one day turned to my husband, and we have the flat screen that's bigger than the wall with the HD, and I'll have it on the regular channel. He puts it on HD and tells me I'm looking at it wrong, and I'm like, I really see a difference. But I do tell him, I said, I want you to know no woman would have ever created HD TV.
I agree.
See, women understand. A woman not because you can see her wrinkles really well. You know, that's why women. You know, your makeup doesn't look as good. I mean, no woman.
So there's this great thing coming along, which has already been introduced, and it's going to do phenomenal. It's called Ultra HD or 4K. It's 4 times the resolution of high definition. No, but what's changed is it used to be, and we spent a lot of time trying to convince the industry of this, is that actually the #1 buying influence in consumer electronics is women. Women buy more, they influence more, and boy, did we face resistance on that, getting that concept across. And we did that as the association. And we fought some old boy guys, and they didn't get it. And we actually did research that showed, which disagrees with you, that women would rather have a large screen TV set than a diamond ring. My wife said, by the way, it depends on the size of the diamond.
I agree with her. I agree with her. No, and I do agree. And you know, my husband, if it's a good deal, we definitely, I mean, we have a flat screen in every. When they hooked it up, when Verizon came and did our Fios, they could not believe we had that many TVs. They couldn't believe it.
And Fios is wonderful, but where we're going, so we have these phenomenally flat, beautiful, lightweight, inexpensive visual displays that they're going to occupy every wall in the future, and they'll respond to you, they'll respond to your needs, your likes, your wants. You can have different things on them. We have a phenomenal future in video, which will be great by so many. I mean, this is science fiction stuff we're talking about, which will, I mean, it'll be interactive and learn. And I mean, it's one of the things we're going to is the Internet of Things, which things respond to each other, the temperature, the environment, whatever you want. So we're heading in this direction, which is phenomenal. Away from these big, clunky cathode ray tubes, we've come a long way.
So, because I know people have questions, and I knew that this conversation is going to be one that I want 5 hours with you, so we'll have to get a lunch back on the calendar. But what's coming that's really exciting you besides that? What do you see in innovation? I mean, and I'm talking to people in bio and research and behind medicine right now. Amazing things are happening. What are you excited about?
I mean, there's so many amazing things. I referred to some of them earlier, but one I referred to earlier to me just intrigues me, and that is the concept of the driverless car. It's technically available. I mean, the expenses is out of control at this point, but it will the cost will go down dramatically. So we are now at the point of how many of you have the beep beep backup on your car? Where so you try driving a car after that, you start hitting things behind you. You become reliant on it. And so now cars are starting to avoid, they tell you if you're weaving. I mean, there's a lot of things that monitor your eyes, for example, if you're not focusing or if you're down in your text or you're falling asleep. So there's a lot of great technologies, but where we're going is very clear to me. This is the clearest transition of technology, and we're going to a driverless car. So if you have driverless cars, and let's say we're 80, 90, 100% there, think about the transition that'll do for, like, you'll have that time to use in your car to do other things. It'll be constructive. It'll not be audio video, but you'll be able to talk to people more, you'll be able to focus. What it will do for the disability community, what it'll do for the drunk community. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there. But it'll also be, but I honestly do have a little bit of a concern, and I'm not asking government, is that it's going to disrupt the economy in a very big way. I mean, look at the number of people who are drivers for a living. There are millions of people that drive. Taxi, look at the auto insurance business, the auto collision business, the emergency room doctors. I mean, the people who make wheelchairs and are healing people, you know. We talked about all the bad things that we do in society with guns and things like that, but really auto accidents are still, I mean, they're just hurting and killing us. So if that goes away, what a major change in society for the good, but very dislocating, like every technology.
It's disruptive, totally.
In fact,
disruptive.
my whole career is about dislocating technology. That's what I do for a living. I fight industries that are trying to preserve the status quo. Yesterday in Las Vegas, the leader of Fox, the president of Fox, said if there's this one technology which a court just held was legal in New York City and is coming to DC soon, which allows you to just get television on free over-the-air television on your computer. If that technology stays legal, Fox will go to a subscription-only model. The broadcasters are an example of an industry I'm always fighting because they've gone from 100% after your relative Sid Tobel created Scientific Atlanta and invented cable. They lost the cable, they lost the dish, they're losing the internet, they're losing the DVD and everything else. They're down to less than 10% of the population relies on an over-the-air antenna now, but yet they have all this spectrum that they're using and that the government has loaned to them. So they're always under attack, and they always respond, and they try to fight, and they use the government and lobbyists to preserve that. Same thing with the Motion Picture Association, which got so nervous when they gave up control of movies when the VCR was introduced. Same thing with the music industry that was decimated in part by the computer. Now they figured out how to embrace it. And other industries, like travel agents. What happened to them?
But now they're coming back.
They are coming back, but the point is,
but in a different
innovation,
way.
Technology is always changing. It's like we spend our entire lives as human beings trying to preserve the status quo, to preserve our family, our relationships, our loved ones. But the fact is, you can't. Life is going to change things, and the quicker you just try to embrace that and accept it and deal with it and appreciate what you have while you have it, the better off you'll be.
I know, and I actually had a personality test, and my former chairman of my board's back there, and we both fell in this category that we're the type of people that if there's change, it doesn't matter what it is, we will run to change. And then there are other people who are like, please don't even say the word in my presence. And so you're always trying to balance that kind of craziness. But I think that's why we get so enamored with technology and why I still continue to play in it and do things like this and have these conversations. Okay, we've got time for a few questions, and I know we want a book signing. Yes, ma'am. So the question is what are we going to do about manufacturing?
It's a great question about manufacturing. So there's two types of manufacturing in my view. There's the manufacturing which I've seen around in China and Vietnam and Mexico and elsewhere, which is basically rote work over and over again. That is not what we should be doing. Then there's the Germany type manufacturing, which is think of automobiles or medical, highly skilled medical. This is advanced manufacturing, and that's something we'd be better at. It requires trained people. It does require fewer people, though. So I think we're maybe better at highly skilled craftsmen and highly skilled manufacturing, but that's not going to be a huge driver. And in terms of incentives, I think this harebrained scheme of having little areas of the country and giving them tax credits is just taking money from someone and giving it to someone else that's unnecessary. The most natural thing in the world is to manufacture close to where you are because there's a lag time, 3 months of shipping across the ocean. There's problems. China especially is unstable politically. There's so many reasons not to do it. I mean, if one thing the Japanese tsunami and earthquake and what happened in Thailand has taught us is you never put all your eggs in one basket. And we're doing it now with China. So we should be, companies should be making the decision to manufacture here. But if you want to manufacture here, you have to have policies which make sense and encourage manufacturing here. I don't mean tax policy. I mean, a lower tax rate and predictable would be nice. But I mean, stop the crazy rules. There are 5,000 rules that have been proposed in the last 120 days. I'm not lying. 5,000 rules, 120 days by this administration. Not a good thing if you want to encourage a job. You wonder why there's no jobs? First of all, there's 3 million jobs open now. They're not being filled because there's a lot of incentives not to fill them, and people don't want the jobs. Look, you turn on talk radio all the time. There's truck drivers' jobs that are just going begging now. So there's a lot of jobs out there. You want to read something interesting? Read the front page of the Wall Street Journal yesterday. Social Security disability. Fastest growing thing. Why? Because it makes more sense to go on disability and say you have a backache than it does to actually go out and get a job. The incentive is there. And this is just a fact. It is happening. So number one, we've created a society where we encourage people not to get jobs. And number two, manufacturing jobs themselves. I can tell by your face that you disagree with me, which I understand and respect.
I'm listening intently.
No, but I mean, but manufacturing jobs are not what, if you have even a high school or even a junior high degree, you do not want most of the manufacturing jobs that are out there in the world. So you have to be trained and have knowledge and be able to do something. Understand numbers, understand how to program a computer that will move something. And that requires skilled training, and that's what we have to go for. I mean, I think if you want to go after something, go after the community colleges, get them. I mean, what we have done as a society is we have said, as opposed to Germany, by the way, which has done the opposite, we've said, go to college. That's the only thing that's respectable. Get you a liberal arts degree in the history of American women. What does that do for you? We should, if we want to give student loans, we should give it on the basis of can you get a job with that degree? That would make a little bit more sense. So we have a lot of kids, including my son, who do not have jobs now. My son refuses to let me help him, I might add. God bless him. He's principled but jobless. So he has 2 master's degrees, and he does not have a job. Why? Because these are not, he has an economics degree and a history of science and technology, great degrees, but these are not jobs creating degrees. But yet people who graduate community college, they are getting jobs, and there's demand for them because those are skills, but yet for some reason we don't think those are respectable here. And we put people with 4-year degrees ahead of these people. That's insanity. And we subsidize them with student loans. It doesn't make sense. So our goal as a society, not to say everyone must have a college degree, but everyone should have a marketable degree, and we should be highly educated.
I agree. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so the question is, how did you possibly have time to write a second book, much less the first one? And she heard that you wrote the book on...
So I'm writing also about 100 op-eds a year, and you could Google me and you could see I have a lot of different opinions. I write for Forbes every week, the Huffington Post, and a lot in Fox, and do other stuff. I have opinions. I can't sleep if I don't get those opinions out. So once they're on paper, I could sleep well. The other thing is I have a phenomenal people who work at the association. Everyone who reports to me directly runs their area, and they're highly skilled. And the fact, I think reality is my personal life has allowed me to do it. So I leave Thursday afternoon for Detroit. On Friday, I sit on our bed in our tiny little house that my wife had when she was single, and I dictate, honestly, into my iPhone, and that's how I wrote most of the book. The other thing is I had a publisher which is very aggressive, saying, you want to get this book done, you have to have 75, this is last March, you have to have 75,000 words by July 31st.
So when you dictate that, what happens to the dictation?
What happens, I was just asking that in the cab over, because we have a system set up in my office so no one will criticize me personally, but they collectively and together with an outside agency, they review it, they improve it, they provide the factual basis for it, because I make assertions that are not factually based. And then it comes back to me for approval or tweaking, and it's but I never know who is correcting me, which is good, because no one has to take on the president, and I don't have to say, you know. But so, you know, it's a negotiation, and not everything is always published, but that's how it works.
Is your dictation accurate?
Well, I used to, you know, so here's my maybe takeaway for you is I used to try this like every few years and get frustrated because the software was never good. But now, yeah, I use email. I just send emails to myself, and that's how I dictate it. So it's accurate enough. Sometimes, you know, the corrections are funny.
One last question. Yes, ma'am, and this will be the last question so you can sign some books. So let me just summarize it so we have it on camera. So we're talking about, with advances in technology today, what's the advice you feel we need to be giving young people looking at sustainability to complement? And I would imagine sustainability tends to be part of the things you're talking about, and with advances in technology and resources and how we can do things better, because we do tend to have, you know, lots of plastic and all these other things that happen.
Well, first of all, you also mentioned that you're talking to obese people, and I applaud you for that, and I really love what Michelle Obama is trying to do. A lot of what happened in our healthcare debate around the country was not about doctors failing. It was really about the fact that we have lifestyle choices that people are making, in part because we're very heterogeneous, in part because we just have a lot of junk food and things like that, that it's, the system has not been good for our health. And I know, again, for my wife, you know, diabetic retinopathy, so many things happen because of that are very, very harmful to people as they get older, and that's very important. So how do we change people from that is where I thought you were going with your question, but you asked what is it we can do as parents was your question. I think the #1 job of a parent is to instill confidence in their kids and let them make decisions, and they see the consequences of those decisions. And I talk about this in Ninja Innovation a little bit because we are shifting as a society, I think, in the wrong direction, so we're trying to protect our kids from failure, when we should be encouraging them to make decisions and see the consequences. So if the kids never made decisions in their life, and the parents are always fighting with the teachers, or they're not keeping score in their soccer game, or they're giving them awards for showing up, or as this high school did a couple of weeks ago, they canceled their honors assembly because they didn't want to affect the kids that didn't get the honors awards. That's not a good thing for parenting. So I think the #1 thing as a parent is you could start early and hold the kids, be firm, and it goes against you wanting to have an easy life for your kids, especially because we're a fairly wealthy society, and you can allow your kids to do a lot of different things, and it should be a concern of parents, but their confidence will develop if they make decisions on their own and see the consequences. And what you're talking about, it really has to do with consequences of the decision, and also understanding that you have an ethical obligation in society. When I was what I would do every Saturday for years was my son and I would go along and we would clean up the garbage on a mile strip of road along where I lived in Vienna, Virginia. And that was something where my son saw the consequences of other people throwing out garbage, and we were cleaning. Plus we spent a lot of time talking about it. And I'll tell you, he's the most sustainable kid in the world now. He doesn't even eat meat or drink any alcohol, which I find amazing. Not that that's anything to sustainability, but I mean, the point is the other thing is, let's be honest, you do the best you can as a parent, and then it is what it is, and some of it's genetics and some of it isn't, you know. But I think what we have is, parents are putting too much on the schools to say you should raise our kid, and that's not the job of teachers. And also, I do believe, this is a statement against interest, that you should not let your kid be in front of a television and let the television be the babysitter. The American Academy of Pediatrics has suggested that parents under 2 kids watch no TV. And from 2 to 4, I mean, it's not a good influence for children to always be sitting in front of a television, but that's the parent that's making the decision. So our TV manufacturers are now, many of them are actually putting up voluntary warning labels on the TV sets saying that the American Academy of Pediatrics has recommended this. But this is just common sense. And it's easy to do, by the way, when you're a helicopter parent the way I am, to say that. It is tough, though, having kids and having a job and doing things, and you need to get stuff done. So I definitely see both sides of it. But it's a great question that we could spend a whole another hour on, because I'm sure there's a lot of things I'm not doing right.
Yeah, I know, not me. I can't thank you enough. This has been intriguing, and as always, it was like having coffee and lunch with you again. We've got to do this again soon. This has been amazing. I sincerely would like your wife to come down. Have her come down, take a week, and tell her vacation's an interview with us. So.
It's kind of you. I'll pass it along.
Yeah, and I can't thank you enough. And we have, for the first 50 guests here, a free book, which is a gift from Pillsbury Winthrop Shaw, who hosts this. So I say thank you very much. This has been amazing, and I thank you.
Thank you. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you.